Number one in our hearts, number one on MLB's top 100 list. Shohei Ohtani is number one everywhere. Let's talk about it live on Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks to our everydayers for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. And thanks to those of you who are with me live here on Thursday evening. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. So please subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. If this is your first time with us, my name is Jeff Snider. My normal co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me tonight. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like most of you. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we bring you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And getting started on MLB's top 100 list was Shohei Ohtani, ranked the top player in baseball. Interestingly, ahead of Aaron Judge, who Aaron Judge's description actually says, while Ohtani may be the best all-around player in the game, Judge is undoubtedly the most feared hitter. So it's clear that they are basing this on what they're expecting for 2025, which is the big news. As we know, Shohei Ohtani is back on the mound this year at some point. And, you know, back when Ohtani was on the Angels, I made the point a couple times, it's almost not fair. Like they got to have a different award for Ohtani, because if Ohtani has a good season offensively and a good season on the mound, he's more valuable than any other player in baseball. It just, mathematically speaking, you can't compare. I mean, it took Aaron Judge hitting 62 homers a couple years ago to beat out Ohtani for the MVP award. Most of the time, it's just going to be Ohtani's award to lose. But you know what? I don't mind that now that he's wearing Dodger blue. It really is so unique and such a cool thing that we get to see. And I was just thinking the other night, like, I've watched Ohtani pitch a ton of times. I used to watch a lot of Angel games because Shohei Ohtani was one of my favorite players before he became a Dodger. And I've even seen Ohtani pitch in person. And it's a lot of fun. I've never seen him pitch in Dodger blue other than throwing bullpens. And I am really, really excited for that first game whenever he does get back on the mound and start pitching for the Dodgers and bring this, you know, all this talent that makes him, like, nobody's surprised that Shohei Ohtani is the number one player in baseball. Last year on the top 100, he was ranked fourth. That was because he was recovering from Tommy John. They knew that he wasn't going to pitch in 2024. And turns out he was probably either the first or second best player in baseball last year. So they kind of underrated him to start the season. Going into this year, the sky is the limit for Shohei Ohtani. We talked the other day, he probably won't steal as many bases when he's pitching, but I don't see any reason why he won't hit roughly as well. Like, it's who he is. He's just a great, great hitter. And then the fun part maybe is the rest of the list, because the Dodgers had 3 players in the top 10. They had 9 overall in the top 100. That was the most. There was one team with 7, a few teams with 6. But the Dodgers had the most players in the top 100. I'm going to talk about kind of the down ballot guys in the next segment, but the 3 in the top 8, because you have Mookie Betts at number 5 and Freddie Freeman at number 8. Both of those guys actually dropped a little bit, because last year Mookie went into the season ranked 2nd and Freddie went into the season ranked 5th. It's kind of, so I guess this 2 years in a row that Dodgers have had, I guess last year they had 3 in the top 5. And look, they won the World Series. Turns out maybe everybody was right that it was a pretty good team. Freddie Freeman is a really interesting one to me because, yeah, you read this blurb. Let me read what MLB wrote about it. It says Freeman had a challenging year, and the challenges went way beyond the field. In early August, his son Max was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and Freeman had to leave the Dodgers to be with him. Thankfully, doctors told Freeman and his family that Max would make a full recovery. On the field, he continued to produce, if not at the level he has in recent seasons. He finished with an .854 OPS with 22 homers during the regular season, but then he hit one of the most memorable home runs in postseason history in Game 1 of the World Series, a walk-off grand slam that set the tone for a 5-game Dodgers victory. That little caveat in there, if not at the level he has in recent seasons. Like, we would all agree, Freddie Freeman had a down year last year by Freddie Freeman standards. Freddie Freeman's OPS plus last year was 143. Freddie Freeman in a down year was 43% better than the average hitter in Major League Baseball. That's because he's Freddie Freeman. Like, it's ridiculous the standard that Freddie has set for himself and that he continues to meet. I mean, yeah, the year before there was 163. Yep, it was a worse year for Freddie. He was still one of the best hitting first basemen in baseball, one of the best hitters in baseball. Just absolutely ridiculous what we've come to expect from Freddie Freeman and what we will continue to expect from him. One of the things that I like to do when this top 100 list comes out is I assign points, basically the opposite of the ranking. I just subtract the ranking from 101. So if you are ranked number 1, you get 100 points. If you're ranked number 100, you get 1 point. If you're ranked number 50, you get 51 points. Hashtag math. You can figure that out. And then it's fun to see which teams have the most. And the Braves had the second most players on this list with 7. The Braves, if you add up their points using my little system, 406. Pretty darn good for their 7 guys. The Dodgers, if you add up their 9 players, 513 points. 513. That's one of the highest I've seen since I started doing this. I've been doing this little spreadsheet thing for 6 or 8 years when MLB comes out with their top 100 list. 513 is crazy. That's like, think of it this way. Just the fact that the Dodgers had those 3 in the top 10, that gave them almost 300 points. Imagine if they had 2 more guys in the top 10, 2.5. That gets them up there in the 500 range. They have it spread out more. They have 9 guys on the list. And, like I said, we'll dig into more of the other guys in there. Mookie Betts is the other guy in the top 10. He's ranked number 5. And again, Mookie he dropped a little bit. He was number 2 last year, but because he's coming off an injured season, he is changing positions, all of those things. But the last sentence of his blurb kind of sums it up, says, perhaps no player in the game with his caliber of offensive capability is as defensively versatile as Betts, who is entering his age 32 campaign in 2025. And that defensive versatility, that's why I've said all along, I am totally on board with giving Mookie a chance to play shortstop, because if he can be even an average defensive shortstop, he's an MVP candidate because of how well he hits. And I know a lot of people were worried that his offense will suffer from the strains of playing shortstop. I don't really buy that. And, I think a lot of that is because Mookie had hit a little bit of a slump last year before he broke his hand. But like I said before, the narrative early in the season, why Mookie was tearing the cover off the ball was, well, he has to focus so much time on shortstop. He doesn't have time to think about hitting. So he just lets his natural hitting ability take over. And then later when he started slumping, it was, well, he's focusing so much on shortstop, he doesn't have time to think about hitting. So he's slumping. I think the truth is somewhere in between. I think Mookie Betts is just a streaky player. But if you look at his overall numbers last year, of the 3 positions he played last year, shortstop, second base, and right field, shortstop was his best numbers. And, I'm not saying he's going to be a better hitter playing shortstop. I just don't really buy. Honestly, I think right field would be the hardest on him because it is so much more running around. I think shortstop will be easier on his body than right field. And so I expect him to be typical Mookie Betts in the batter's box. And like I said, if he can be even average defensively, that's, one of the top 3 or 4 players in baseball. That's why MLB has him at number 5. Easily a top 5 player. The people ahead of him, you've got Juan Soto, generational hitter, got Shohei Ohtani, 2-way player, Aaron Judge, best power hitter we've seen in decades, and Bobby Witt Jr., who is basically a younger version of what Mookie's trying to be. A good shortstop, great hitter, all those things. And so no complaints about where Mookie is. And I think he's going to prove that he belongs in that spot this year when he proves to us that he can play a solid defensive shortstop. When I come back, I'm going to talk about the other 6 guys in the top 100 for the Dodgers, dig into a couple people who didn't make the list, all of that. You might be surprised at some of the guys who I think maybe should have been on the list. So please keep it locked on Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the open and tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. There's a ton of stuff you could do. The NBA is a little bit slow right now because there's all of the All-Star festivities and whatnot. They actually do have the upcoming game between the Lakers and the Mavericks on February 25th. There's already odds on that. Lakers are minus 255 favorites. Obviously, that game has some storylines going along with it. One of the things I noticed in baseball on FanDuel, you can bet on who will win the divisions. And it's kind of interesting. 4 of the 6 divisions, the leader, the team with the best odds to win is still, like the Braves are plus 135. So they're not favorites to win. The Yankees are right at plus 100. The Twins are plus 210. Astros at plus 170. And then the Cubs are minus 105. So, actual betting favorites to win the NL Central. The Dodgers, minus 650. The second best is the Padres at plus 950. The Dodgers are such overwhelming favorites to win the division. It's kind of fun to look at those things. And you know what? Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So, maybe not that because that'll want to take a while. But find something with odds like that, a minus 650, put $5 on that. And then when you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Hey, I am back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer if you are. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning, and you can make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. For your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On MLB, hosted by our buddy Paul Francis Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully. He should be back to 5 episodes a week, like all of our baseball shows are now, because it's baseball season, baby. Also, check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. And, of course, go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. So the rest of the list. I guess I'll read you who is on the list from the Dodgers, and then we will dig into this. At number 36, Blake Snell. Number 52, Teoscar Hernandez. Number 60, Will Smith. Number 63, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Number 71, Tyler Glasnow. And number 100, Roki Sasaki. So you've got 2 guys who have never thrown a pitch yet for the Dodgers. 4 Dodgers starting pitchers in the top 100, which is kind of wacky. And then you've got you got the starting DH, the starting shortstop, starting first baseman, starting right fielder, and starting catcher. So 5 of the 8 position players plus 4 members of the starting rotation. I mean, it's star-studded, this lineup. And I think you can make a decent case. Max Muncy. I'm not saying he should have been on the list. I am relatively confident that Max Muncy will have a better year in 2025 than 37 guys on this list, which means, should he have been ranked number 63? You know what? Maybe. In hindsight, I think we will look back and see that Max Muncy is one of the 100 best players in baseball right now. I understand why they didn't put him on the list. He was hurt a lot last year. He's streaky, all those things. I expect Max Muncy to belong on this list by the end of the season. The other guys who maybe surprised me, there were only 3 relief pitchers altogether on this list, and that's Emmanuel Clase and Devin Williams and Mason Miller. So obviously, that's a choice MLB's making. Relief pitchers don't have as big impact as starting pitchers, all those things. You have to be the cream of the crop of relief pitchers to make this list. Now, I think you can make a case that Tanner Scott is cream of the crop of relief pitchers. I think he's done it a couple years in a row now to the point where it's not fluky. I think Tanner Scott's the only current Dodger reliever who I would argue should be on this list. Obviously, I expect Blake Treinen to have a good year. I expect Kirby Yates to have a good year. I expect Michael Kopech, when he's back from injury, to be very, very dominant. I think there's a lot of guys who could have really, really good years for the Dodgers and be among the top 100 players in baseball. I understand and actually agree with the bias against relief pitchers on this list, because it is such a different position. And we face the same thing when we're talking about Hall of Fame voting. What does it take to get in as a reliever? Billy Wagner was finally just elected. And if you just look at, wins above replacement, a relief pitcher is never going to provide as much value as a starting pitcher or a position player. And so with the Hall of Fame, I think they've started to kind of say, okay, let's compare these guys to each other rather than to everybody. It's kind of like a kicker in the NFL. It's such a different position. I think on a list like this, it makes sense to only put the absolute elite relievers. Personally, I probably would have gone with 4 relievers and put Tanner Scott on this list. I'm not sure who I would have bumped off the list. Let's see who's at the bottom of this list. Jacob deGrom, who I guess if he pitches, he's probably going to be good. But that if he pitches is a big question. You look at this bottom of this list, and there's guys who had a good first year, like Lawrence Butler for the A's, had his first good year last year. Kerry Carpenter for the Tigers, kind of the same thing. Jurickson Profar's on this list. There are guys who, I would have found room for Tanner Scott on this list. As for the other guys, the other Dodgers, Will Smith being on this list obviously is. I sometimes laugh at how Will Smith is seen differently outside of Dodger circles than within Dodger circles. I feel like a lot of Dodger fans are kind of down on Will Smith sometimes because he does he does most years kind of run out of gas a little bit. And I would love it if the Dodgers had a backup catcher who you actually wanted to put in a game so that Smith could take a little bit more time off. I think Will Smith is one of the best catchers in baseball, and he is ranked 60th on this list, which, I think he's probably even better than that. No gripes about it based on how he played last year. Teoscar Hernandez is number 52 after not being ranked last year. Obviously a huge year for him last year. Nice to see him jump onto this list. He and Roki Sasaki are the 2 Dodgers on this list who weren't on the list last year. Obviously, Blake Snell was not on the list with the Dodgers. By the time it came out, I assume Tyler Glasnow was a Dodger by then. Glasnow stayed in about the same spot. He's 71 this year, and he was 74 last year. Yamamoto, same thing, 63 this year, 61 last year. They kind of lived up to their expectations. And Snell is kind of the same thing, 36 this year, 30 last year, just kind of staying right where you expect them to be. I wonder, though, if we are let me see what other teams. I should have pulled this up. Let's see. Go to starting pitchers. I have them sorted by team. So there are only a handful of starting pitchers. The Cubs have 2, Imanaga and Justin Steele. The D-backs have 2, Corbin Burns and Zach Gallen. The Mariners have 3. That makes sense. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and Bryce Miller. The Padres have 2, Dylan Cease and Michael King. The Phillies, they just have the 1. Oh, the Royals have 2, Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo. And then the Yankees have Garrett Cole and Max Fried. So, nobody else has more than 2 except for the Mariners have 3, and then the Dodgers have 4. Like, I've said it so many times. Every way you can build a baseball team, the Dodgers are good at it. They are good at drafting. Despite having terrible draft positions every year, they are great at spotting talent. They are great at developing that talent. They're great at signing international free agents. They're great at signing real free agents, whether it's scrap heap free agents like Max Muncy or, all-star free agents like Blake Snell. Obviously, their money helps with the top free agents, and nobody's going to argue that it doesn't. They're good at trades. You look at the Mookie Betts trade. Keith Law, I was reading Keith Law's top prospects list, the Dodgers top 20 list the other day, and he made a joke about he doesn't understand why any team even takes the Dodgers phone calls anymore. Because it's like if the Dodgers say they're interested in some random minor leaguer you have, you ought to hang up and make him untouchable. That the Dodgers got River Ryan from the Padres for Matt Beatty. They just have a way of doing that. So obviously last year it was Zaire Hope and what's his name, Jackson Ferris in the Michael Busch trade. Dodgers are really good at all these ways of building a team. And you look at this, the Dodgers who are on this list, you've got homegrown guys, you've got free agent guys, you've got, go back to this view. So Ohtani free agent, Betts trade, Freeman free agent, Snell free agent, Teoscar free agent, Will Smith homegrown, Yamamoto international free agent, Tyler Glasnow trade, Roki Sasaki international free agent. They've done a lot. And then you look at other guys on this list, Corey Seager was a guy drafted and developed by the Dodgers, guys like that. The league is full of people who have had their careers touched by the Dodgers. It's pretty fun. The Dodgers set up for it. Like if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this smile. Like when I think about the 2025 Dodgers, I can't help but smile because it is going to be such a fun season to watch. Obviously, once October hits, then we'll have the stress, and we will be just as stressed as if they hadn't done all this. But for the 6 months of the regular season, I'm just going to smile and enjoy the ride because it's going to be a lot of fun. And this top 100 list kind of explains why. I'm going to come back in a minute. The Dodgers made Clayton Kershaw's deal official. It is a low-dollar contract, but could be actually a pretty high-dollar contract with a lot of incentives that we're going to dig into. How many is he going to hit? We'll talk about it when we come back on Locked On Dodgers. Hello, I'm back. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Thanks for being an everydayer. Thanks for being a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles over on YouTube. Just taking a look at the chat. I know there's a lot going on in the chat. I apologize that I can't keep up on it as well when I am doing a solo episode. I'm sure somewhere in there, Richard is complaining that I don't read his comments. Here we go, Richie. We're ruining baseball again. There, I read your comment. I assume there's IB Strokin says I won't read his comments because he's a ghost. Guess what, ghost? I see you. A lot of fun stuff in the chat. So thank you for being here live. Always fun talking Dodgers with you guys. This is our last episode of the week. We'll be back on Sunday evening. I will be in the very same rental house that I was in for Freddie Freeman's World Series Grand Slam down in St. George, Utah. We are heading down for another baseball tournament for my son. And so I will be recording from that guest bedroom you guys came to know and love during the World Series. So be sure to join us then, probably just Sunday night's episode. I should be back here in my bobblehead office by Monday evening. So happy Valentine's Day, by the way, if you're listening to this on Friday. Happy birthday to Mama Snider. My saintly mother turns, however many years old today. I know the number. I'm just not saying it out loud, but you can see how old I am. Just imagine how old my mom is. But Mama Snider is the greatest. I love you, Mom. Happy birthday to you. And maybe I wish my dad happy birthday next month, except he doesn't listen to this podcast. So why would I? But digging into our last segment, my favorite baseball player of all time, Clayton Kershaw, re-signed with the Dodgers. They made it official on Thursday. And it's kind of an interesting contract, just like last year, low base salary with incentives. A little bit higher base than I think last year was $5 million. This year, the base is $7.5 million. And Clayton Kershaw said he expects to start the year on the 60-day IL, but he expects to be ready to go around the time that he's eligible to come off the 60-day IL, which means 2 months into the season. Obviously, for the Dodgers, the season starts earlier. So really, we're looking at mid-May, May 18th, 19th, somewhere in that range is when, if Kershaw did start the season on the 60-day IL, that's when he would be eligible to come off. Chances are he won't actually start on the 60-day IL because unless they need the 40-man roster spot, they don't need to put anybody else on the 60-day IL. In fact, you can't put somebody on the 60-day IL unless you need the 40-man roster spot. But just talking timelines, Kershaw probably going to be back in May, hopefully. And so that kind of gives us a framework to look at these bonuses that are in the incentives that are in his contract. Like I said, a base salary of $7.5 million, and then $1 million for each of 13, 14, 15, and 16 games started, and then $2.5 million for 30 days on the active roster, $1 million for 60 days on the active roster, and $1 million for 90 days on the active roster. So if Clayton Kershaw comes back in mid to late May, and remains healthy and effective, he will meet all of these incentives. The 90 days on the active roster, plenty of time for that. And so that would be, if he hits the days on the roster, if he gets to 90 days on the roster, that's $4.5 million more. So that puts him up to $12 million. And then the other $1 million bonuses for 13, 14, 15, and 16 games started. If you look at a 6-man rotation, that's 27 starts per guy. If Kershaw is around for 2/3 of the season, which would be, if he misses 2 months, he's there for the other 4 months. That would mean 18 starts for Kershaw. Obviously, staying healthy. This is one that's going to be the hardest because, when they are, if they're going to skip a guy in the rotation one time through, because, say they have 2 days off one week and they don't want to get too many days off for their starters, so they'll skip Kershaw maybe once in a while. I don't know for sure that he'll get to 16 games started, but if he's healthy and effective, it's very likely. And that would put him total at $16 million. Now, think about it. A version of Clayton Kershaw that is healthy for 4 months of the season and effective enough to be in the rotation, easily worth $16 million. It kind of reminds me of the deal that the Dodgers signed Rich Hill to after the 2015 season. You remember they traded for Rich Hill at the trade deadline in 2015 with some other loser. But then they re-signed him at the winter meetings that year. And it seemed like it was a little bit of an underpay. But the logic then, which they basically said, was we're not expecting Rich Hill to come make 32 starts. We know that he is getting older, that he's going to need some time off, that there may be an injury or two here and there. And so we are going to pay him as if he's going to play 2/3 of the season. And you look, and he ended up making 20 starts for the Dodgers in 2016, and he made $6 million that year. Total bargain with how good Rich Hill was. And obviously that contract was a little bit backloaded. And so like the average annual value on that 4 years that he was with the Dodgers there, it comes out to about $12 million a year, 12, 13 million a year, and totally worth it because they went into it knowing Rich Hill wasn't going to make 32 starts. I feel like that's kind of the same approach they're taking with Kershaw, taking it even further. Look, the more you pitch, the more you're going to make. And I love, Kershaw, what he had to say. He said he's a Dodger for life. He said it again on Thursday. He said it's something he didn't always appreciate, the opportunity to play for the same team his whole career. He also had interesting things to say about his recovery from surgery. He said it's been hard to walk with the toe surgery. So he's just turned a corner in the last few weeks. So we'll see what his timeline actually is, if he's being optimistic in the 2 months. But whatever it is, the way this contract is structured, Clayton Kershaw has a chance to earn plenty of money that he doesn't really need. He's made a ton of money in his career. And the Dodgers have a chance to really benefit. Even if he hits every incentive, that's the whole point of incentives. It's like they're win-win. If you pitch well enough and often enough that you earn this money, we come out ahead as a team. And so I love these incentive-rich contracts like this for a guy like Kershaw. However long he sticks around, I think this is what we're going to see most years, is these kind of incentive-laden contracts. We talked the other day about the possibility of him maybe wanting to get to 20 seasons. This is his 18th year with the Dodgers, tying what Bill Russell and I think Zach Wheat for most seasons played for the Dodgers in a career. As soon as he throws one pitch this year, he'll be tied with those guys. He may want to at least get to 19 to have the record by himself. Maybe want to get to 20 for a nice round number. Who knows? But this is the kind of contract we're going to see from him. I thought it was interesting. Blake Snell said the other day after throwing his first bullpen with the Dodgers, he talked about the fact that Clayton Kershaw was standing behind the mound watching his bullpen session and how cool that was. And he said it was one of the coolest experiences of his career. Blake Snell has pitched in a World Series. Blake Snell has won 2 Cy Young Awards. Blake Snell has thrown a no-hitter. And having Clayton Kershaw watch him throw a bullpen session in February was one of the coolest moments of his career. That kind of tells you how these guys feel about Clayton Kershaw. You could see it last year at the parade and the celebration, how happy people were for Clayton Kershaw, even though he wasn't even on the postseason roster. He was injured. People love Clayton Kershaw and are really excited to learn from him. And it's kind of funny, like Blake Snell, in addition to talking about how cool it is to get to play with Kershaw and pick his brain. He's also talking about taking Bobby Miller under his wing, which kind of makes Clayton Kershaw Bobby Miller's grandpa, like with Blake Snell as the dad in between. And these levels of what's the word? Apprenticeship, mentorship, where you've got the super veteran Kershaw mentoring the really good veteran Snell, who's going to mentor the young guy Bobby Miller. And if I was a guy like Bobby Miller, who was coming off a terrible season, struggling, can't imagine a better situation than having guys like Bobby Miller or guys like Blake Snell and Clayton. I'm excited for all that. Vince talked the other day about Bobby Miller, all those things. So Clayton Kershaw is officially back. Seems like the internet's getting choppy again all of a sudden. I hope it's not too bad for you guys. It seems like it's been good for most of this episode anyway. I think that's going to do it for me for today. I appreciate you guys being here in the chat, keeping things going. A lot of good comments here. Richie says the guest room that I'll be using will be better than Kevin's kitchen. That is a reference to All Dodgers with Clint Pasillas and his buddy Kevin Skinner, who podcasts from his kitchen. Hey, you know what? Kitchens are great. There's no bad place to talk about the Dodgers. That's my opinion. BC says 2025 will be the first time the Dodgers repeat, win 100 games and win the World Series in the same season, and win 3 World Series in the same decade. That's true. They've won 2 World Series. They've never won 1 World Series in a decade. They won 2 in the 50s, 2 in the 60s, 2 in the 80s, and now 2 in the 2020s. This year, we will get our 3rd one in the 2020s. A lot of good stuff. I'm shooting for 162-0 and then 11-0 in the postseason. Both of those would be records. 11. I assume since it went to at least 11 games, I don't think any team's gone undefeated in the postseason. Noah says, nice haircut. Thank you, Noah. I appreciate it. I was getting scraggly, and now I'm less scraggly. When I take my hat off, I kind of got the Eric Karros hair going on, but, that's why we wear the hat. But, yeah, that will do it for me for today. That'll do it for us for this week. Like I said, we'll be back Sunday night. Hopefully a lot of good stuff to talk about. And we got games starting next week, spring training games, real live spring training games. So a lot to talk about in the upcoming weeks as spring training is going. We get ready to head to Japan, get ready to repeat as World Series champions. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, it's easy to become one. Just watch or listen every weekday morning. Make that easier on yourself by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening right now. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, the two 24/7 streaming channels on YouTube from the Locked On Podcast Network. You can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us, one-on-one conversations, access to our exclusive Discord server, so much more, just a few bucks a month with a free 14-day trial. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog. Both of our DMs are open over there. You can also email us anytime you want, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or send a voicemail or a text message to 323-863-LOCK, 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We will talk to you Sunday night.